Did you know that 78% of automatic transmission failures aren't from normal wear and tear, but from these specific driver habits? Most drivers are doing at least 3 of these right now without realizing it. The average transmission replacement costs $4,500, but car manufacturers won't tell you the simple habits that could save your transmission. They'd rather sell you a new car when yours breaks down prematurely. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. We've all done it. You're cruising down the highway, thinking you look like some action movie star with one hand on the wheel and the other resting on your automatic shifter. It feels natural, maybe even comfortable, but what I'm about to tell you might change this habit forever. That casual pose isn't just bad driving form, it's silently destroying your transmission right under your nose. Here's what's actually happening. Every time you rest your hand on that shifter, you're applying between 5 to 10 pounds of constant pressure on delicate internal mechanisms. Your transmission wasn't built for this. Those internal selector mechanisms and synchronizers are designed for brief contact during gear changes, not as an armrest for your right hand. Think about it this way, that persistent pressure is forcing metal components to make contact with other metal parts that should never be touching when you're just driving normally. The shifter rail gets pushed against synchronizers, creating a grinding effect that's happening mile after mile, hour after hour. What's really alarming is how fast this damage adds up. Transmission components that should easily last 200,000 miles start failing at just a quarter of their expected lifespan. By 50,000 miles, you could already have significant wear that's completely preventable. I've talked to dozens of mechanics about this, and they all say the same thing. They can literally see the evidence. When they drain transmission fluid during service, those tiny metal shavings floating in the fluid tell the whole story. It's like finding sand in your engine oil. Something is getting ground down that shouldn't be. The financial impact is where this really hits home. When that transmission finally gives out, and it will, you're looking at a repair bill between $3,000 to $5,000 for a complete rebuild, all because of where you decided to rest your hand while driving. What makes this even worse is that most drivers have absolutely no idea this damage is happening. Your car won't give you convenient warning lights or strange noises until it's too late. By then, you might be stranded on the side of the road wondering why your car suddenly won't shift properly. Modern automatic transmissions are actually more vulnerable to this kind of damage than older models. With more precise engineering and delicate internal components, today's transmissions pack more technology into smaller spaces. They're built for efficiency and smoothness, not to withstand constant external pressure from your hand. The solution is ridiculously simple. Keep both hands where they belong, on the steering wheel. Your transmission shifter was designed to be touched only when you're actually changing gears, which in an automatic car is practically never once you're driving. Speaking of touching your shifter, there's another popular transmission habit that's burning holes in wallets nationwide, and it's happening at practically every stoplight you stop at. You've seen it before, maybe you do it yourself. The moment the light turns red, your hand reaches down and shifts from drive to neutral. Makes sense, right? Why keep the transmission engaged when you're just sitting there? Wrong. This supposedly smart habit is one of the most expensive myths in driving, and mechanics everywhere are seeing the damage patterns show up on their repair benches. Here's what's actually happening every time you make that D to N shift. You're forcing your transmission to completely disengage and then re-engage when the light turns green. Your transmission wasn't designed for this constant back and forth. It's like unplugging and plugging in your computer multiple times a day when you could just leave it on standby. The real killer, those dramatic pressure changes happening inside your transmission fluid system. Each time you shift between drive and neutral, you're creating what mechanics call mini shock waves throughout your entire transmission. These pressure surges are especially damaging when your transmission fluid is cold during those morning commutes, or if you're one of the millions of drivers who don't change their transmission fluid as often as recommended. What's wild is how obvious this damage becomes to experienced transmission technicians. During inspections, they can instantly recognize the uneven wear patterns on specific parts of your transmission. It's like a mechanical fingerprint that screams, "I shift to neutral at stoplights." And they know exactly what's coming next, a major transmission repair. Now let's talk dollars and cents. The supposed fuel savings from this habit, less than 20 bucks a year, basically the cost of a pizza. But the potential transmission repair bill when those those bands and internal components finally give out, an average of $4,500. That's not a typo, $4,500 for a habit that saves you less than $2 a month. The solution is almost too easy. Just keep your car in drive with your foot on the brake when stopped. That's literally what the system was engineered to do. Modern automatic transmissions have sophisticated idle control systems that are actually more fuel efficient in drive than in neutral at stoplight. This problem gets even worse in newer vehicles with start-stop technology. These systems are precisely calibrated to work optimally while in drive. Shifting to neutral actually confuses their programming and can prevent them from working properly, eliminating any fuel-saving benefits they might provide. What if I told you that tiny metal part about the size of your pinky finger is the only thing keeping your 2-ton vehicle from rolling away? I'm talking about the parking pawl, a small metal rod that's literally the only component locking your transmission when you put it in park. But here's where things get scary. Every time you shift to park while your car is still moving, you're gambling with a $4,500 repair bill. Let me paint a picture for you. You're pulling into a parking spot, and just before coming to a complete stop, you shift to park while the car is still rolling slightly. You hear that familiar click sound and think nothing of it. What you don't realize is that sound is actually your transmission crying out in pain as the parking pawl violently slams against the moving output shaft. This isn't just bad, it's catastrophic for your transmission. When that tiny pawl tries to stop your moving vehicle, it creates metal shavings that enter your transmission fluid and circulate throughout the entire system. Think of it like throwing handfuls of sand into an expensive watch mechanism. Those metal particles act like miniature sandpaper, slowly grinding away at every precision component they touch. The forces at work here are shocking. Even when you're moving at just 3 miles per hour, barely faster than walking speed, the impact on your parking pawl is equivalent to dropping a 50-pound weight on it from 3 feet high. Imagine doing that repeatedly to any mechanical part and expecting it to survive. What's truly alarming is how common this problem is. Transmission specialists report that approximately 1 in 4 transmission failures they see show damage patterns consistent with this exact habit. That's right, 25% of people paying thousands for transmission repairs could have avoided it by simply coming to a complete stop before shifting to park. The most dangerous aspect, this damage accumulates silently over time. Your car won't give you warning lights or make strange noises as this damage builds up. You won't notice anything wrong until the pawl suddenly fails, possibly causing your parked vehicle to roll away when you least expect it. Imagine the horror of watching your car roll into traffic or down a hill because this tiny component finally gave up after years of abuse. The solution is incredibly simple. Always come to a complete stop before shifting to park. Not almost stopped or barely moving, completely stationary. This one habit could literally save your transmission from destruction and prevent dangerous rollaway situations. For even better protection, get in the habit of applying your parking brake before shifting to park. This takes the pressure off your transmission entirely, allowing the brake system, which is designed for stopping and holding the vehicle, to do its job while the parking pawl simply acts as a backup. Here's the thing about your automatic transmission. It's basically living on borrowed time if you're making these mistakes we've talked about. And the difference is staggering. Properly maintained transmissions can actually run strong for up to 300,000 miles, while those abused by poor driving habits often fail around just 60,000 miles. That's not a small difference. That's literally 5 times the lifespan. Your everyday habits behind the wheel are what determine which side of that statistic your car ends up on. These aren't just minor issues, they're literally the dividing line between a car that lasts you a decade and one that leaves you stranded with a massive repair bill within a few years. Look, car manufacturers aren't in the business of telling you how to make your vehicle outlast their warranty period. They designed these systems to last just long enough. What happens after that? That's completely on you and your daily habits. The way you treat your transmission today determines if you'll be shopping for a new car or still enjoying your current one 5 years from now. Watch your habits, treat your transmission right, and you'll be amazed at how long it can actually last.